Just go. Ta-da!
That means now.
The day I started the sound.
Better turn away and then look over your shoulder. How'd it go?
Well, I didn't really plan this out, so I'm just gonna
Wing it!
start telling you what happened.
Yeah.
And if you want to just throw questions up, that's okay. We'll just I'll answer questions as we go. How's that? We'll just kind of make it real simple. And I'm Colleen Hamer. You all know who I am? Okay. And I went 1,067 miles all total around the state. And this is the map, if you haven't seen it.
Show Bambi.
No?
If you move, I'll lose you.
Here, I'll show you. Can you see it? Can you see
It's
it?
like the Big Bang Theory.
There we are.
She wants to be out in the audience.
Yes.
Be careful we don't step on her.
Oh, no, you're putting that right in front of your video, right there. There you go.
Right here in front of me.
There you go. That would be
Okay,
like,
how's that?
that would be like your butt blocking the video at my wedding.
Apparently that happened.
Anybody step on the cords. Okay, so that's the map. This picture is more, actually, Michelle took that. I think Michelle was there when I took that picture right here where I put all the gear on him just to try to get on some more to see how it all worked and stuff. And I found out early on that if you don't tighten really tight that cinch, especially when it's got a lot of weight in those bags and stuff, the whole thing opens. And here he is, standing with the whole gear hanging under his belly. He didn't care. He had a good mind for this sort of thing. So, my goal originally was to go all the way around the state and touch all of the bordering states. And so I started out by going up to South Dakota. My mom lives in Vermilion. This is my mom over here.
Hi, guys.
And while we're at it, this is my father. And this is my sister. Bambi on the computer. A lot of you know who she is, but she's my aunt. We had to have her here because she really was a huge part of this thing. She through using her networking skills and getting on the phone and calling people and stuff, she helped me get around here big time. She'd call ahead, make cold calls, and she would find people to help put me up or just help me if I got lost, if I didn't know where's a damn store for something, she could get on and find stuff for me. And she was, I don't think I could have done it without her.
No kidding.
I'll probably get this way a few times. So anyway, I don't want to get in the way. But I started out from Blair here, and I went north. I camped the first night in the tent, and then I got to I was told to. Well, the second night I ended up at Decatur, and I was just standing alongside the road. Actually, I found a horse trailer just parked there, and I was going to tie him up and do something. And the guy that owned the horse trailer come walking up or driving up and says, "You need a place to stay?" Well, as a matter of fact, I do. And Paul Richards is his name, from Decatur. He was a great guy. He let me stay in his machine shed. So, and it rained like hell for 2 days, so I was glad to have a dry place over my head. I slept in the back seat of his pickup truck the first night, and then the next night that was so cramped I threw my bedroll in the box of the pickup the second night and slept back there. It was a lot more comfortable. But anyway, they told me I had to get across the Indian reservations from Decatur. there's two of them. There's the Winnebago. Well, there's the Omaha Reservation first, and then there's the Winnebago Reservation. And everybody told me, get your butt across there. Don't mess around. Do not spend a night on the reservation because it's very dangerous. And so I hustled. I left early and I hustled trying to get all the way across there in one day. And it was 25, 26 miles across there. And that's a long day in the saddle. So I pulled into, I thought I'd stop in Macy first because I've always wanted to see what the town of Macy looked like. I'd driven by it on the highway hundreds of times, but I never had actually pulled down in there to see. And I was very interesting. Poverty-stricken, very, very dangerous, very scary place. And there's a little convenient type store there, and I rode up there. The horses running loose in the streets, and feral dogs running around. They'd see him, they were gone like a shot.
You were pretty freaked out when you called me that day.
Unusual. But these horses running loose. Just loose. 5 or 6 of them all running around together. And so I had to deal with those horses coming up to my horse and stuff. But then I went to that convenience store, and I had to go in and get something to drink, some Gatorade or something, and I tied my horse. But I didn't have any choice but to tie him up there and go in and leave him with these horses all around. Luckily, that turned out okay, but the guys that were standing around there were really, really scary. There was one in particular that just had this look of hatred in his eyes, and he just made my skin crawl. I really felt like I'd seen the devil that day. It was just, nothing happened, but I knew I needed to get the hell out of there. So I got back on the road and headed up, and I made it all the way across the Omaha Reservation pretty good. It was a lot of it was uphill. It was really treacherous because of the trash on the sides of the road. Mostly liquor bottles and beer cans. Littered. I mean, like you can't believe it. It was awful. And it was very hard riding because of that.
Really?
And
Went up 75?
yeah, I went right up Highway 75. Yeah. And the shoulders weren't very wide either, and it was just really a nasty place. And then I hit the Winnebago line, and I could tell a difference. It wasn't as dirty, it wasn't as filthy. And I rode on and I rode on, and I was getting really tired by the time I got to the town of Winnebago. And then I rode through there, and they got this nice little roundabout, and when you come here, and then there's a really nice hospital up on the hill over here on the right side. And I was just riding past that roundabout and in front of the hospital, and there's a lady standing there, and she's just as nice as could be, friendly, wanted to know what I was doing. She sees all this stuff on my saddle, and she knows I'm up to something. So she asked me, what are you doing? And really curious and just friendly as all get out. And she says, yeah, we, people say that we're really mean and, not very nice around here, and she says, but really, Winnebago's a really nice town. She says, we're pretty friendly here. We like having people come, and you could just see the difference between, you could feel the difference between the town of Macy and the town of Winnebago. It was like night and day. And everybody was, they butt up against each other, yeah. And that's where you could even see when you're riding down the road that the roads were nasty, and then they got cleaner as you got closer to the town of Winnebago. So, and she was so nice, and I look around, and the people are clean and look nice, and they're friendly and smiling, and it was just a world of difference. And I thought, well, I think this place is safe. Maybe I don't have to, because I don't have a ways to go yet to get across that reservation. I was tired. We were tired. It was a long ride that day. And so she says, police station was right there. So I went over and talked to the police, and they says, oh yeah, you'd be more than welcome to stay here. We'll keep an eye on you. We'll check on you. and they suggested I stay in the buffalo pasture. Well, one of the guys there offered for me to come out to his place and camp if I wanted. He's actually one of the Parks and Recreation guys for the reservation. And then they thought, well, what about the buffalo pasture? And I thought, I would love those buffalo. Whenever I drive by and see them out there, I always wanted to stop and look at them. Well, they weren't there. They'd been taken out of the pasture a few days before, but they let me camp there in the pasture, and that was pretty cool. It's kind of a spiritual thing, you know. At least I was in their place. And so I set up camp there, and it rained another day, and I ended up staying 2 days there. And this is where Bambi kind of first came into the picture. And she found a lady there through her church. And she made a cold call to this lady that happens to be a member of the same church she's in. Says, hey, my niece is there. She needs a shower. Can you help her out? So the lady came and got me, took me to her house. I did my laundry and took a shower.
In Winnebago.
And in Winnebago. Yeah.
Isn't the buffalo pasture the first place that s'more took off on you?
No, that was the second time. Yeah. Yeah, it became real apparent early on that horses always know their way home. They know what direction home is. Early on, that was a given. We weren't very far from home yet. But as the time went on, it was true. No matter how far away we got, he always knew where home was. And hobbles don't work. Whether you hobble 2 feet or 3, it doesn't matter. They will make tracks. They'll figure out how to get going pretty quick and cover some ground.
I thought that's where you in the buffalo pasture was. Yeah. Oh, okay. That was the first night you camped. Okay.
First night. And I just
In
had
Herman.
2 feet hobbled. And I turned around. I was making a fire to heat some coffee and turned around and kind of forgot about him. And next thing I know, he's gone. But he didn't get very far that time.
Did he come back?
No.
Go get him.
No, he won't come back.
No, she had to hoof it. She had to hoof it.
So, well, 2 feet hobble didn't work that day. So, and I tried different things all the time as we went along, and it turned out that really the only safe thing to do was tie him on if you could use a high line of some sort. And I found different ways to do that worked out pretty good. But I always tie to something that will not break. Because when we got out here further, he broke his branch he was tied to and made almost 2 miles before I caught up to him. Anyway, that's down the road. We'll talk about that when I get closer. But I got to Winnebago. I spent 2 nights and it was just an incredible place. I loved Winnebago, and I will go back. There were good people there, and I had some really good experiences. So then I left Winnebago, and I was headed up towards, my goal is Vermilion, and Mom didn't know this yet, but we kept it quiet. It was going to be a surprise and trying to, a few people knew about it, but on Facebook, keeping something quiet, it was a miracle that nobody knew before. Anyway, I rode up through this little town of Homer, which is just north of Winnebago, and I pulled over there and went in the store and got something in the little convenience store there, and I was outside eating it, and some guy in a pickup just pulls up, and he notices my stuff again and wants to know what I'm up to, and we got to talking. I had a great fun to talk to, really neat guy. Turned out, he looked kind of familiar to me. It turned out he was actually from down around Blair, but he lives up in South Dakota now. But anyway, we're talking, and I says, I found out that my little tent leaked badly. And I needed, because I woke up in rain, in water that one night on Winnebago, and that thing had just leaked horrible. So I needed a little tarp to put over the top of my tent. So I just happened to ask this guy, I says, you don't happen to know where, if maybe somewhere in Homer or somewhere around here I can get a little tarp to put over my tent? And he got this look on his face like, reached over on his seat, handed me a brand new tarp. It was sitting right there on the seat next to it.
It was an angel.
It was. It's exactly what I thought. Sort of, well, pretty close.
No, we think alike.
Yeah, it's just, that's the way it was starting out. Things like that, you know, these little people were put in your path at just the right time for whatever. And it was pretty cool. So, and he didn't make it, darn it. I was kind of hoping he would. I sent him an invitation, but so that was one of those things. And then right up that road a little ways, I didn't put a picture of it up here. I don't know if there's one up there or not. I found a little roadside rest area kind of a thing. They built a little, there was a pipe coming out of the side of the hill with water coming out, and they made a little pool to catch the water. It's like a little fountain thing and a little seat you could sit on. A little bridge thing.
You got a
little
picture.
footbridge.
It's up there.
Was it up there?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just a really cool little spot. And the name on the head, it was like a headstone thing that was there with some nice plants planted around it and stuff. And I think the name was Ross Kelly, that apparently lived in that area at some point in time but was deceased. And somebody built this little thing there for him. And it was just a perfect spot right when we needed to get a drink of water. S'more got to get a drink there. And I was carrying a friend of mine's ashes, her mother's ashes, that she wanted her mother to go on this trip with me, and that I could scatter her ashes as I went along. And this seemed like a perfect place. So I scattered some of her ashes there, and it was just really a neat spot. So then I went on after that, and camped on the side of the road up there by Jackson, and was kind of getting handy at building my little campsite. And then I got, when I left, I stayed in Ponca for a couple of days. I can't remember how I found that guy. But he was a really nice guy, let me stay in the cattle barn right next to the highway and kind of a little rodeo grounds. And I put S'more up there. And then a friend of mine came and picked me up in her truck, and we ran up to Turkey Creek, where there was a gathering of people. It's a real pretty area up north of Newcastle, with horse trails and cabins that you can rent and stuff. And a lot of my friends go up there and ride from time to time. It's a beautiful place. So I was real close to that. So we just took a drive up there, and that way I could see the roads going up there that I was going to be riding on to get there, and because that was my next stop, was up there. So we rode up there, and then lo and behold, there's my friend Marvin up there, and Cindy, who couldn't be here. Cindy helped throw this doggone party for me. But she couldn't be here because she has a grandbaby that was just induced this morning, and she hasn't come yet, so Cindy couldn't be here. But anyway, Cindy was there, and Marv was there, and a bunch of other folks. Kay wasn't there, but a bunch of my friends were there, and oh my God, all my friends, it was pretty cool. And then Cindy came and parked her trailer next to my barn. I got to sleep in her trailer one night, which was like, I was really spoiled. And then I slept in the barn. This is the barn. It had 2 stalls. The next night after Cindy left, S'more could come and go inside of the one, and then I could set my little bed up on the ground in the other one. I really liked that situation. It was nice to be sleeping right beside your horse. There's something real special about that. And he likes it too. He likes having you there. When you're the only thing he knows constantly, they get pretty hooked onto you. And you could tell that he was really enjoying my being there. He'd actually lay down and rest next to me and stuff. It was really cool. And I really liked that spot. And then I rode out from there, and I got up here just after Newcastle, I guess it was. I was riding along the highway, just getting ready to turn off of the highway and go up this road up to Turkey Creek when here comes Kurt. down the road on his motorcycle. If he would have been 10 minutes later, I'd have been off that road and we'd have missed each other. But that was just another one of those things that I thought was really special, seeing him on the road like that. His dad, and that's him in the, yeah, and that's his sister next to him, and their dad was a really, really good friend of mine for a lot of years, and he's passed on now, but these guys are pretty special to me. Seeing him.
It's Keith's son, right? Keith's son,
Keith,
right?
yeah, Keith was their dad. So I just love that. I love seeing my people out there, you know, people that meant a lot to me, and it was like, it was helping me along all as I went. And so I rode up to Turkey Creek, and they put me up in this little cabin here. It was really nice. And then they trailered me over to the Vermilion Bridge, and I got a trailer ride across the bridge. Now looking back on it, I would have rode across it. But I wasn't too confident about it to begin with. If I had it do over again, I'd have rode. But I did get a trailer ride just to the other side of the bridge, and then I rode on up to Mom's house, which is about 3 miles out through Vermilion and on the other side of Vermilion, and surprised her. I called her when I was down the road and says, "What are you doing?"
It's a good 10 miles from the bridge.
Is it 10?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It was closer to 15.
Yeah.
Close, I think it was 13 now that I think about it. So anyway, I called her from down the road. I says, "What are you doing?" "Oh, nothing." "Well, grab your camera and come out to the mailbox." So she came out and took some pictures as I was coming. So I got to surprise her.
She says, "Do you know where your camera is?" I said, "Yeah."
And then I got to ride back again, and I stayed a couple days, and then I rode back.
The road, and I thought, yeah, I can take it out there. I don't know what for. Maybe there's an airplane going over or something. I'm supposed to. That was a surprise.
I pulled it off.
She said, "When you get out there, point it down the road." So I'm pointing down the road and I see her coming in.
Little dot way down there first. So anyways, I stayed with Mom a couple days and rested up and tweaked my gear. My gear was already falling apart. These things are really nice, except they had plastic snaps and plastic. The sewing and the webbing and everything is really tough on them, luckily. But they had these plastic snaps and things on them that didn't hold up. Right off the bat, I found that out. So I was always having to tweak things. And then the bags themselves were rubbing the hair off of the side of the horse, and so I took and put this felt stuff and sewed it on the back side. That worked out really good. It was always constantly having to tweak things like that as we went along. But so got going again. I left a whole bunch of stuff at her house too, because I was already. I mean, that's one of the things that I learned as I went was what I had to get rid of. I couldn't carry most of the stuff I left with. So I left a pair of shoes, extra pair of shoes. And I had so much stuff you couldn't believe when I left, and very little when I got home. So then I got a trailer ride back to Turkey Creek again, and then we had a little gathering with some more people, and then I rode out. And the folks from Turkey Creek rode out. Brenda, the owner of the facility, rode out with me that first day for most of the way to my next stop. And then I was on my own again and went across there, and I was really struggling with S'more's feet. It was raining all the time, and everything was really wet, and his feet were soft, and they were starting to wear down. And I was getting pretty concerned by the time we got over here to Center, and by the time I stayed in Center one night, and actually that's where I really got rained on. Good. And I Risky up in the saddle with me, and we just hunkered down, and rain came and soaked us, and then the guy that I was going to stay with, he knew I was coming, so he came out looking for me, and he grabbed the dog and then took the dog back, and then I rode on in. But anyway, He also owned a property down by Creighton, and I stayed one night at his house in Center, and then I rode over to Creighton, stayed a night there, and then I was getting ready to ride out. In fact, I did ride out, and I got through Creighton and was just headed down the road from Creighton when S'more stepped on a rock and pulled up lame as hell. And,
Barefoot?
yeah, he's barefoot. I was a barefoot fanatic to begin with. If you can't hear, maybe come forward a little bit. Can you guys hear?
Yeah.
Everybody can hear but you, Patty. You can come up here if you want.
I figured.
Anyway, he pulled up really lame. I stopped and checked. And I looked, and he was bleeding at the toe of his sole. His sole was so thin, and he stepped on a rock, it actually drew blood. And so, well, dang. Luckily, I was able to stay at that place near Creighton, and go back there and stay there as long as I needed to. So I went back, regrouped, thought about it, talked to a lot of people. People were telling me, quit the ride, go home. Your horse is too crippled. You don't have any foot left. Go home. They didn't see the horse with their eyes. I'm trying to describe things to them. And I'm the only one that can make this decision. But it was a really hard spot I was in. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was really frightened. I was really worried. And I had a real important decision to make. Really the first big decision I had to make. And I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I had these cards that my friend Michelle gave me for Christmas a few years ago. And I should have brought those, why I didn't. But they're like a medicine card, and there's a whole stack of them, and you can flip through and draw one out, and it's got a really nice saying. And I love these cards. I've always loved them. They're all horse related. But this morning I prayed, and I pulled a card out. And this is what the card said. No turning back.
There's a message.
Tell me about it. As you have grown, I can't read your writing.
Let me read it for you then.
As you have grown, developed, and deepened on your life journey, you have found yourself way down the trail from where you started. You may have friends or people in your life asking you to change back, to come back to where you once were. The way you were back then was comfortable for them. They did not need to grow or change to keep you or interact with you. However, you have indeed grown and are moving on to new ground, ready to soar to new heights. Looking back is reflective for you, some yearning or nostalgia to be expected, but trust that the new higher ground upon which you are standing will be reward in itself. Keep moving forward. There's no turning back.
I cried when she called me and read that to me.
You know, I just want to add one thing. Colleen called me during this time, and one of the things that you told, because I was thinking you maybe should be done, that your horse was maybe done. I was thinking that. And one of the things that Colleen told me was how good S'more was feeling. And she said, you know, we were coming back from this place, and I put my leg back, and he popped into a lope. I said, he's fine, ride. And that's when I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were behind you all the way.
So I got on the horn, and I called this friend, one of the friends that told me to turn back. 5, 6, 8 foot wide. And I'm a little afraid of heights.
Yeah.
About half an hour.
S'more didn't care. He'd been across 100 bridges just like this one as far as he knew. You know, it was exactly they built all the bridges along the Cowboy Trail the same way. They're all made exactly the same. This was no different, except it was longer and higher.
How high?
But he didn't
And
know
skinny,
that.
and
He
you
didn't
could see
realize
through it.
that. I mean, he didn't notice that stuff. I'm the only one that did. And the dog didn't care.
Was it an old railroad bridge?
It was an old railroad trestle that had the floor redone on it, and it had sides built on it.
You could still see through the slats, couldn't you?
No.
No, not at
No,
all.
they're all tight, but they're at an angle. The boards are angled. And I was so terrified. It was everything I could do to step out onto that. I got off the horse because I needed to get that much closer, as close to that ground as I could.
Yeah.
And it was everything I could do. It was one of the hardest things I've done in my life, walking across that bridge. And I led him, and the dog didn't carry me. And I'm, oh my God. Oh, I don't know how long. It's at least a quarter mile. Pretty close to a quarter mile long. And about that high. Oh, and you know what even made it harder was the part coming up to it. The approach to the thing didn't have any sides on it, and it was already getting up high as it approached. And that's really where the terror started for me, because oh my God. And then by the time I got to the actual bridge, it had me.
Did you ride him all the way up to
I
the actual bridge?
No, I got off before.
When it started?
Yeah, when it started to get really high, I got off. And we got it one step at a time, and then I had to take a couple pictures to prove I'd been there. So I get over real close to the side, and I put my arm on it, and I grab a hold of it, of the railing, and get the other hand, and I'm hugging that railing for all I'm worth, and just holding the camera. I'm afraid my hat's going to blow up, and I'm going to go with it. It was awful. So,
When she called me when she got to the other side, I could hear her shaking. I mean, she got to the other side and that was she stopped. She was done. You know, that's it. I made it across. I'm
I
done.
took a picture of the last few feet.
You know, when she got
I can jump from here.
when she got far enough to actually see that there was an end, she took a picture because she couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But she did. She was just like, you could just hear it in her voice. She just that when she got to the other side, that was it. She was done. She sat down. That was it.
I sat down.
Okay.
There's a little bench right there. You can sit and look at the pretty scenery.
She was done.
Very pretty.
There it is.
Oh,
wow.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. There that devil is. That's from the highway bridge, looking over at it. Yeah. Anyway, I got to the other side. There's that bench you could sit down on, and I sat down and just shook for a while, and it was kind of like vibrating in my eyes and weird shit. And all the way across the bridge, everything seemed like it was moving. And it was kind of tunnel vision, but not really. It was just terror. It did something to my
Vertigo.
brain. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I sat down for a minute. It's getting hot. I had to keep going. I had to get into Valentine. So I got back on, and I'm going along, and I couldn't keep my eyes open. I was so emotionally drained from those two experiences that day. Losing the horse to begin with, and then going across that trestle. And I literally could not keep my eyes open. I kept falling asleep in the saddle, and just it was all I could do to get into Valentine. And but I made it. I got there. And then
Colleen, did the animals sense your fear?
I don't think.
No.
I don't think. S'more's a pretty steady boy. It takes a lot to bother him, and
He just followed you right across.
he just followed me around. He didn't care. He didn't bother.
That's why he kept spinning back. Probably later.
Yeah.
Bambi said something again.
My husband says the good thing he didn't go across that trestle when he got loose. If I go across that thing again and come back again,
You're
I don't know if
Nebraska
I'd have done
Long
it.
Walker.
I don't know if I would
Were
ever
you
go.
concerned about the trestle because of its structural integrity or because you're scared of heights?
Scared of heights.
Oh,
Yeah, it was solid. It didn't move. I just thought it did. It didn't. Yeah. No, it was very well built. No problem there. And I knew that. And I kept telling myself that. But so we got to Valentine.
I don't think she's saying something.
S'more's feet.
Or Nick's.
Colleen,
He's really.
Bambi's saying something.
What, Bambi?
I I said, when you posted those pictures, I'm afraid of heights too, and I got airsick just looking at them.
Yeah. There's a thing here that I printed off of Facebook about a lot of the posts in response to that trestle and what other people had to say about it and stuff. It's kind of fun. Yeah. So Valentine, I had a gal in Valentine that I knew, and she was wonderful. She met me at the fairgrounds, and we talked to the guy that does all the maintenance there, and he's on the fair board there in Valentine, and he said I could set up my bed and stuff in this one building. So that's this picture. I took a couple of folding tables and laid them down next to each other, and then I threw my bed on top of that and spread my stuff out, and definitely looked like a hobo. Really.
You coined yourself something else along the way besides horseback hobo, though.
The roadkill something or other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was after the smelly stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. I was collecting roadkill too.
Pieces,
Cool things,
pieces and
like
parts.
Coyote tails and
Back
stuff.
claws.
She called me. She says.
I had an owl foot.
She called me. She says, "What do I do? This is starting to really smell."
Because she knows about those things.
This is salt and
Salt
air.
and air.
Salt. Don't close it up at anything.
5 days.
Yeah, that's about right. Yep, about 5 days. Yep. So, S'more's pretty lame by the time I get to Valentine. He's pretty off and on. I mean, he's moving along okay, but I can see he's not quite right. So I met this guy down in Wood Lake that was quite a good horseman, and he knew how to do chiropractor stuff, and I called him, and he came and looked at him to see where exactly we thought he might be off at, whether it's in a stifle or what was wrong. And he had checked him out and didn't think there was anything wrong in his body, that it was probably his feet. So I said, to hell with it. I'm tired of fighting with these boots. I'm still wrapping these damn things. We're not making any progress. They're still getting more sores rubbed. And I'm tired of fighting with it. So I says, I'm going to put shoes on him. So Archie and my girlfriend Twyla in Valentine, the two of them both recommended the same farrier. You're out in the middle of nowhere where you don't know anybody, and it's hard to know who to call, who to put shoes on your horse. I'm very, very particular about stuff like that. I don't want just anybody working on my horse. And I did the best I could with what knowledge I had. I used these two people's suggestion and went with this guy. And there were things about the way he was working on the horse that did give me concern, but I didn't really have much choice. So he put shoes on him, and we traveled really good. That got us a long ways. I'll tell you what, it wasn't perfect, but we made it a long way. We made it, I think, almost 250 miles on that first pair of shoes. Wow.
Yeah.
So, that's what all them pictures are. Oh yeah, and then there was the nasty cop in Valentine.
Please share.
Tell that story. What was
Yeah, Lopez was his name.
In case you
And
want
he
to know.
actually was he used to be an Omaha cop that they kicked out. They didn't like him either. So he got a job in Valentine. Anyway,
What did he do?
it was over the 4th of July. I actually S'more was in a pasture for 8 days while I was in Valentine, and I actually got to come home for a day or two for my nephew's wedding. And when I went back, which was July 2nd and 3rd, and then I went back, I think I got back on the 4th or something like that. And I was still camped out in the fairgrounds. And the 4th of July, fireworks things going on at the fairgrounds that night. Lots of people everywhere. We'd Bill!
Hi, Colleen.
Hi! Lots of people, lots of people milling around. I kind of hid out in my room. I bought a piece of tarp. I was getting rid of that tent. Well, I'd already gotten rid of the tent. And I had I left it at home when I came home for the wedding. So I had this tarp, and I had these 2 pieces sewn together, and I was spraying some stuff on it to waterproof it, and I had it all spread out in the building. And I don't know what I was doing, minding my own business. But I had the doors opened up just a little bit so to let the fumes out. And somebody dropped something that came inside the machine, inside the shed. And then they came over and opened up the door to get whatever it was they dropped. And he didn't really look right at me, but you knew he had to know I was there. He had to have seen, I mean, and if you think about it, look at that hobo little,
Yeah.
spread there, my bed, and then you smell them fumes, and you wonder. So
Somebody's over
he
there?
had to wonder. He didn't say anything to me. He just shut the door and left again. And about a half hour later, here comes this bowed up cop with an attitude. What's going on here? I says, well, I got one of my cards. I carry these cards with me, and I got one of my cards out, tried to hand it to him. He wouldn't even look at it, wouldn't touch it. What are you doing here? I says, well,
It's all in the sky.
the maintenance guy says I could set up my camp here. I'm traveling, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to tell him, and he's, well, what's that smell? So, well, I'm waterproofing that piece of canvas over there, and he looks and, got any ID on you? Yeah.
Just trying to hand it to you.
Yeah. And then he says, then he stomped out. But he was really rude and really an ass.
So if
Anyway,
you're ever through Valentine's,
but I
look him
got
up.
to thinking, he probably thought I'm some drug addict and they're huffing. It makes perfect sense that he would think that. But I thought I was going to jail last night. It's the closest I ever came to going to jail. So, and everybody hated him. He really was a jerk, and he was like that to a lot of people, not just me. I mean, he could have been nicer. He could have didn't have to be an ass.
We go on lots of huffing and drug calls, Colleen. I've never had anybody bring a horse. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, snakes. Never a horse.
So anyways, S'more lost a lot of weight. Well, even that 8 days he was just standing in a pasture and wasn't doing anything. He started losing a lot of weight. And then I got to thinking and talking to Twyla, and she says, well, the grass out here in the sandhills isn't very good. And he'd been surviving on grass. And whatever, once in a while somebody come along with a little extra feed and I'd give him some. But mostly he got along just fine on grazing. And I gave him lots of opportunity to graze. But it wasn't working going across them sandhills. So I started feeding him grain and really got him fed up, and he started to put weight back on. And then I fed him grain all the way across the sandhills. However I had to do it. If I had to carry some with me and get the rest taken ahead, a lot of times I'd try to find somebody that could take my stuff ahead for me. And then I figured out that while they're doing that, they could also take some of my other gear, like my load. And I started doing that from time to time, and it really helped a lot. But we got shoes on, and we're rolling pretty good, and we got the feed thing figured out, and we're going along there pretty good. And the Cowboy Trail then from Valentine through Merriman is not finished. It's finished from all the way from O'Neill all the way to Valentine, but then after Valentine, they've taken off the big rock, but they haven't replaced with the limestone, and the bridges are finished, but that's it. And they're not. It's not. Nobody travels on it, so it's gotten real soft, and it's just like sandhill ground. It's real soft, and they step in holes and from rodents and things that burrow around, and you never know, and all of a sudden your horse is stepping and sinking to his knee, So we couldn't travel on that anymore very safely. So we ended up back on the highway a lot of the time then, and that was better for Risky anyway, because she was starting to have a lot of trouble with sandburrs and stickers and stuff across that area. There's a lot of that, and these are her boots.
Yeah.
These worked out actually pretty well when I did use them. I only had to use them a couple of days out of the whole ride, and these worked pretty good when I did have to use them. But mostly I just adjusted my route and where I rode to help either her or the horse or whatever to make it so we could go. But let's see. This was really a cool picture. This is, and it was the one night that I rode at night. It was really hot. It's getting really hot a lot as I was going across that part. And I was having to get up really, really early in the morning to ride and be done early so that to beat the heat. And I tried riding at night one night, but that's kind of a rough area along there too. It's real close to the reservations, and those reservations have issues also. And my friends and people told me to be really careful and keep my pistol close when I went across there. And the one night that I rode, this was as it had been raining a little bit earlier, and then there was a beautiful rainbow. And what was cool about it though is you can see my shadow right in the middle of that rainbow, and it just was a really neat picture. And then that was the night, and I rode through the night, at least I think till about 1 o'clock in the morning before I was too tired, and then I just tied him to a sign and went to sleep. But that was the only night that I rode at night, because it just didn't feel safe. I felt really, really vulnerable out there on that highway by myself in the middle of the night, even though I was packing. So I didn't do that anymore.
Colleen.
And then, no, I don't know.
Bambi's talking.
Hey,
Yeah, that was the night that you curled up in the tarp, in the
Yeah.
middle of the field with grass clear up to where have you.
yeah.
And then told me about it the next morning, and after that, I made sure.
She was kind of upset with me.
That girl, Bambi.
I was panic stricken.
She was kind of upset with me that I was out there.
I said,
The side of the road.
Crawled in there. No, the horse would have let me know. The dog would have let me know. And I said, no, there'll be no more of this.
Thank you, Bambi.
That's when we started the serious cold calls.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole thing was kind of an evolving process. We were figuring things out as we went, that's for sure. So, I don't know, saw a lot of cool stuff. Got to go to the Bowring Ranch. They happened to they usually have their thing like in June sometime. It's called the Sod House Sunday event that they have. And it had gotten postponed, and it happened to be held the day I was in Merriman, so I got to go and see Willard Hollow-Peter, who's a really cool cowboy poet that I really like. And then I took this picture of the windmill at night, which was cool. And here, well, let's see. Oh, this little fella, Kyle Wiswall, he's riding across the country on his bicycle. And we crossed each other. He was going this way as I was going along here, and I looked at his gear, and he looked at mine. I says, hey, where are you going? And so he stopped, and we chatted for about 5 minutes, and just had a great talk. It was fun sharing the places we'd had to sleep, for instance. We had that in common. He says he was going to Connecticut, and he coming from Oregon somewhere, I think. And I says, we're cut from the same cloth. And then I told him my story, and that was pretty fun. And he had a website, and he put my picture on his website, and I put his picture on mine. So, we going across Sand Hills, and here, this is after leaving Fort Robb area. Stayed with some great people all along in there, but here, you can't see it from here, and you'd have to know what you're looking at, but way back over in that far distant place, there's a bluff that you could just see the bluff coming to the level, and that's Fort Robinson over there. And this is just after I'd gone a long ways, and I turned around and looked back. And you had to do that from time to time, because if you just kept looking, you just kind of got to look back once in a while, see how far you came. And that really was a good picture for me. So I did that. And then I slept in the Moth Motel. It was really comfortable, but it was really full of moths. It was just an old camper in a pasture somewhere that hadn't been used for about 3 years. So every time you open a drawer, the moths flew out at you all over. I figured out a way to lure them outside. I put a light outside, and then I shook them all up, and they all went out there.
That was the Moth Motel.
Moth Motel is what I call it.
Yeah.
And you were the moth trainer.
The moth trainer.
The moth whisperer.
Put that on my list of names.
That's right.
Let's see. That was along the this White River? White River, I think, that come along in there. It was a kind of a shortcut to get over here to Harrison. And hot. Oh my God, was it hot during those days. Oh. We really got too hot that day. It was there was a couple of days we got too hot. And that was one of them.
Mid-July.
Yeah, late July.
And you were in all of our
Because
prayers.
we left here July
when it
8th
was that hot.
or so. And yeah, I don't know how long it took me to get there. But
Did you hear me? I said you were in all of our prayers when it was that hot.
yeah.
Many
My
times,
dad was even
many times a day.
worried about me. Only time I heard of him. The whole time.
She was a little grumpy a couple of them days that I talked to her.
Oh, I would think.
I
You know.
don't like the heat anyway.
That's
And
to be
then-
expected,
yeah,
I think.
I'd get a little grumpy.
And she'd call me and I would just feel so drained for her, because,
Yeah.
I could feel it and hear it and everything she was about.
And I got to Harrison, and there was a really nice little barn right next to the highway that I had stopped in on. How did I get there the first time? Drove over there. Somebody took me in a car over there. Oh, people I stayed with over by
Was
Fort
it
Robinson. Took
the
me in a
Arabia
car
Ranch
and
guy or
drove
somebody?
way over there because he knew a lot of people on there. And
The-
I'd already arranged to have the horse at this barn. And then the guy that ran that barn, his dad owned a motel right next door. So that's the first night I slept in a motel. Stayed there one night, and this was the guy that managed the horse barn. Beautiful, really good hand with a horse, and he actually works for a real big, well-known Arabian breeder. and he and Alice Carter.
Is that the single guy?
Yeah.
That you were going to try to lure here?
Yeah. Patty goes,
For us single girls?
So, I figured Cindy and Jill were going to come and meet me, and neither one of them. Well, Cindy's having a baby, but you know what I mean.
Cindy just called with an update. You gave me my leave. They were about 1 hour out. The upper girl's only working on one side. She'll be here with you.
Okay. All right.
When she can.
Cool.
So what about
Anyway,
Jill?
I got in pretty early because I really had beat the heat. I rode early that day, and I got to Harrison and got the horse situated and got my hotel room booked. And Scott was real good friends with this Alice and Ron Carter, they live actually right on the Wyoming border up north of Harrison somewhere. And those folks, Ron and Alice, really cool people. Back in 1975, they rode the entire Oregon Trail. Wow. There were 6 people on horseback that did that together back then. And it was, they were working for the Rush Creek Arabian farm at the time, and the ranch gave them their own Arabs to ride in this thing, and then some other people, I don't know where they got their horses. The other ranches actually put the horses up for them to ride. And they had a wagon that they took along too. And they went the entire Oregon Trail, which was 2,000 miles. And just, they were great fun to talk
Tell
to.
the story about the robbery that he told you.
Oh, yeah, my favorite story that they told was the Schwann's guy. Only it wasn't really a Schwann's guy, it was like a dairy truck or something that came along on the back road somewhere. They were riding along, and Ron saw the truck from a distance. And he told his buddies, he says, "What do you think about some ice cream? How does some ice cream sound?" And they says, "Oh, yeah, right." They said, "Watch this." So the truck comes along, and he rides over and he stops it, and he says, "This is a holdup." He says, my people here are really tired and hungry. He says, what would it take for them all to have some ice cream? And so they dish out all this ice cream and give it to him. He says, now, then he goes back to the driver and he says, now, I have the money to pay for this. It's not really a holdup. And the guy says, oh, no. He says, you can have it. This is the first time I've ever been held up. That's a good story. I love it. Some of the people I met along the way were just amazing. That was the best part, really. They were fun people. And Allison rode with me to Wyoming from Harrison. We got the three, Ron brought the trailer down and picked us up at the border. Alice's husband, and Alice rode with me, and Scott, the guy that managed the barn. The three of us rode to Wyoming, and that's us at the Wyoming sign. And then we got a trailer ride back. That's the first time s'mores in a trailer in a while.
I bet he wasn't hard to load.
No, there's some pictures of him watching the other horses getting in that trailer.
Colleen, prior to going to Wyoming, you didn't know those people at all, right?
Never met any of them.
Oh, that's so cool.
No.
Wow.
No, they were cold calls.
Yeah, this was all, Sherry Jarvis knew a lot of these people. Sherry's a friend of mine, and she's a horse trainer and teaches a lot, and she knew a lot of these people. And Bambi was in touch with Sherry, and Sherry gave her all these names, and that's how I got hooked up with a lot of these people. Most of those ones have been through
Sometimes
there.
they would get you, she's doing what?
Yeah.
She's riding 1,000 miles around Nebraska on her horse. Yeah. Sure, we'll be glad to host her.
Yeah, they couldn't believe what they were hearing sometimes. So then, I got to Harrison, and Cindy and Jill were on their way. They were coming in the morning, and I was going to wait and have them pick me up at the Wyoming border, but instead we went and got Wyoming out of the way. Then I got to Harrison and then got back. And then the next morning we rode down to some people named Greasy. This is them here. And they had a ranch there they raised quite a few horses and cattle. And we stayed there, and I met Cindy and Jill. Cindy brought that trailer that I got to spend the night in when I was in Ponca. She brought that big old living. He didn't know they were fake. He was pretty sure they were grizzly bears. I love that picture. He's just.
Yeah.
Horses are pretty
Yeah.
sure something's wrong when they don't move.
Yeah. Predator. And then I stayed at the Farm and Ranch Museum the first night. And then some people there that worked there actually brought a cot in for me to sleep on. That was nice. And then let me come to their home for supper. The next day I rode down to, they had a press conference set up at the Farm and Ranch Museum. Oh my God. And all these press people came and talked to me all at once.
Oh my.
That was a first.
And where was that
And a last, I hope.
Where was that?
At Gearing. Just south of Scotts Bluff
Okay.
there. Yeah, beautiful area though. And they did all the little magazine or newspaper articles and stuff. And then the next morning I rode out from Gearing, and one of the photographers, or one of the guys from one of the newspapers came out and took pictures of me coming down the highway, and that's where this picture was taken. This is the one that's on the invitations that I sent out to everybody. Beautiful picture with the Scottsbluff Monument behind me and stuff.
Why'd they get it on that cake? That's what I want.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. That's pretty cool
That was
though.
really neat.
Yeah.
Some more feet resolved at this point?
Yeah, he's doing fine. His feet we're traveling along. I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's such a relief.
And he's barefooted
Did you
again.
have to have
No,
a
he's
reset?
got shoes
Does he?
on.
Did you have to have a reset at all after you?
And yeah, at Bridgeport I had him reset. Yep. I got through here, past Chimney Rock, stayed at a place I won't mention because they were mean. And then, and I don't want to give them any free advertising. went past, well, then at that place that I won't mention, my friend Vern Miller, who actually was my junior high school art teacher, who lives in Bridgeport now. I haven't seen him in 30-some years. But, and through Sherry Jo, and details-wise,
This one will give me 12
none
minutes.
of that. I never thought about it real hard. I didn't think I'd ever do it, really.
I don't know, I'll just
something
let this one run out
thought
for
would
12
be
minutes
cool.
and then see.
And then about a year and a half ago, I just mentioned it to my husband. And my husband's kind of an adventurer himself. He likes flying airplanes around the world and stuff. And down around the perimeter of South America, he's done some really cool stuff that way. So he kind of understands that part of me that wants to do something like that. And he says you should do it. I really think you should do it. And then we started talking about the details, and I really enjoyed talking to him because he had a lot of really good input, and he really was encouraging for me. And then it just started to come together. So, yeah. So anyways, we back rolling again?
Yeah,
Okay.
for a
Where
couple,
were we?
for a few minutes.
Well, we got
Harrison to Mitchell, long 60-mile stretch.
long
across-
60-mile
yeah.
stretch across there, and really worried about how to get across there.
Was it real hot?
And it was hot.
No water?
Yeah. And,
Water an issue?
oh yeah, at times.
Water was a bad issue for her.
Water was an issue at times, yeah. But I never went without. I never truly went without.
There was a couple days that
There
you,
was
in the
one day I
heat, you were real
exhausted the
dehydrated.
supply I was carrying, but I was able to get water when I got where I was going. And that's only one time. And S'more always had water. It's
You had to give him
enough. You always
electrolytes
had
at one
enough.
time, though, didn't you?
Well, I did. I didn't have to, but I
Well.
did. Yeah. I just thought it would be a good idea. Yeah. And he may not have needed it, but I did.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah. But there was, all of this stretch and all the way down here, there was a lot of windmills. And I knew nobody cared if I rode in and watered at their windmill, and I did a lot. There were lots of windmills, and I got to pretty good at figuring out which ones were actually running and which ones weren't.
Little bitty wooden ones.
Yeah,
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 I used to hunt grouse out there.
yeah, yeah,
We watered our dogs.
yep. Yeah, and S'more figured out that routine too. He'd figure out where we were going. Pardon?
What did your parents think of all this? Can your parents speak to that?
My parents?
Did they know about this? Did they?
Yeah, they knew.
Don't you know?
Do you have permission?
Good question.
Did you tell him beforehand, or did you just kind of
What did you
say,
think, Mom?
I'm on the road?
Gotta do this.
I told them both ahead of time.
Did you?
My dad was worried sick.
And my wife was worrieder than
She
I
was even more worried than he was, but his wife. Mom,
She worries for me.
she's probably worried, but
You couldn't let you know it.
yeah.
Gonna be done.
Do you want to?
Did you guys want to tell him if I was worried? No, I wasn't worried.
Phyllis and I talked every day.
There was only a couple times that I might have been worried about her a little bit, but most of the time I was just with her.
She was watching me the whole way. She actually learned how to do Facebook because I was on the road. She doesn't like computers much and doesn't have much experience with them, but she learned so that she could watch me as I went.
Trust me, she would call and check on me who did a lot of the posting if it wasn't on there.
Yep.
Exactly.
And I did the satellite mapping to see where she was.
She could wait for me to post in the
Yes.
morning because Chloe would always call me when she'd get on the road. And Phyllis would wait for me to post, and when I didn't, it was like, okay, what's going on? And then I'd call her and she said, well, how come it took you so long to post this morning?
What we had arranged was every night I would call my sister and give her a report. And Carol would make a post at the end of the day on Facebook, what I would tell her. unless I was able to get on a computer myself and post myself. But that was the deal. I talked to Carol almost every day. And then when Bambi came into the picture, eventually it got set up so that there were a lot of people that were watching this every day on Facebook, looking forward to first thing in the morning they get on there and look and see what's going on.
First thing in the morning.
And Bambi, what I just started to do is I'd call Bambi in the morning and
At the
tell
start.
her that when I got on the road again, where that I was on the road, I was going, this was my plan for the day or whatever. And then she would make a post in the morning, and then everybody could catch up and see what,
Bambi'd start the day and I'd end the day.
Right.
Yeah. So that worked out really good. And it was neat to have everybody involved. It turned out, the people that were watching this deal were my inspiration, and they kept me going so many times. I'd get, when I did get a chance to get on and read myself the things people were posting and how it was inspiring to them and how, go girl, go, they'd say, and I said, oh, okay. It kept me going so many times. I was riding for you guys a lot of the time. It was great. So anyways, Cindy and Jill came out, and they met me at Greasy's place up here. Scott rode down there with me, and then he rode back, because it wasn't very far from his barn. And then we stayed there one night, and then we rode down to Buckley's place. This is Buckley's. Bambi and Hazel Buckley got to become fast friends. They were really sweet folks. And
No computer, no internet.
they didn't have any internet, so Bambi was talking to them on the phone quite a bit and really got to be good friends with them. So then we rode, we left Greasy's. I rode with Jill. Jill rode with me that first day, and the two of us rode, and Cindy brought her trailer. Drove the trailer down to Buckley's, and then the next day, Cindy dropped the trailer off and rode back to meet us, and then the three of us rode back in. We tried doing that first day, and then we tried doing it again the second day, but then all hell broke loose. Well, sort of. Anyway, after Buckley's, while we were at Buckley's, we drove down to Mitchell and scoped things out and looked for places where there would be water for one thing, and possible a ranch or something where I could pull in, and we scoped it out and found a watering hole, and I found a ranch just north of Mitchell that I walked up. Hey, can I come stay at your house in a few days? They were kind of worried about it at first, but the more we talked, and it turned out all right. Luckily, I had Cindy and Jill to help me talk through that. But Johnson's Corrals was one of the places that we stopped, and then this picture here, this was actually Greasy's that we stayed with the first night south of Harrison. They owned another piece of land down here, and we stopped there for an afternoon and took a break. And we did our Petticoat Junction pictures.
Yeah.
And these are distance for a reason. There were some closer one-ups, but we don't share those with the public. But we took turns taking pictures of us in the water, and there was a big tank. There's a big tank back here, and we couldn't get anybody to take a picture of all three of us. That would be too embarrassing. But I took a picture of them too, and then we traded places, and we got pictures of us at the top of that tank too, looking over the top. Like in Petticoat Junction, the girls were up. I think that's Jill and Cindy in the tank, right there. So we had a lot of fun. And then we went on down and we spent the night at Johnson's Corrals down here, but Jill had taken the trailer ahead this day, and Cindy and I rode together. And we kept wondering, where's Jill? Where's Jill? She never came back, rode back to meet us, and where is she? When we finally got there, we found out that the guy that, we had talked, actually Bambi had talked to the guy that owned the place and got it okayed for us to stay there. And the guy that owned the place also told the hired man, so everything's cool. Nobody told the father that lives across the road. So he was a cantankerous old fart. He tried to throw Jill out, and she was scared to death. She didn't know what to do, and just wait. He wouldn't. He was so obnoxious. He would not come and talk to us. He didn't have time for that. He wouldn't check our facts. He wouldn't call his son. He just wanted us out of there. And she said, well, you're just going to have to wait till they get it. You can either go talk to them while up the road where they're riding, or you can wait. And so we thought we were going to get thrown out of there, but we didn't. He finally must have found out that we did have an okay. But that was the... and then the next morning they left. And I went on by myself again, but I got to spend 2 nights in that nice trailer again. It was really nice.
Boy, she called me really lonely after
I was
that.
lonesome when they left that time, God. So then I rode on down. I stayed at that ranch north of Mitchell, then I rode into Mitchell and stayed at the fairgrounds again. And he didn't know they were fake. He was pretty sure they were grizzly bears. I love that picture. He's just...
Horses are pretty sure something's wrong when they don't move.
Yeah. Predator. And then I stayed at the Farm and Ranch Museum the first night. And some people there that worked there actually brought a cot in for me to sleep on. That was nice. And then let me come to their home for supper. Next day I rode down to, they had a press conference set up at the Farm and Ranch Museum. Oh my God. And all these press people came and talked to me all at once.
Oh my.
That was a first.
And where was that
And a last, I hope.
Where was that?
At Gearing. Just south of Scottsbluff there. Yeah, beautiful area though. And they did all the little magazine or newspaper articles and stuff. And then the next morning I rode out from Gearing, and one of the photographers, or one of the guys from one of the newspapers came out and took pictures of me coming down the highway, and that's where this picture was taken. This is the one that's on the invitations that I sent out to everybody. Beautiful picture with the Scottsbluff Monument behind me and stuff.
Why'd they get it on that cake? That's what I want.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. That's pretty cool
That was
though.
really neat.
Yeah.
Some more feet resolved at this point?
Yeah, he's doing fine. His feet we're traveling along. I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's such a relief.
And he's barefooted
Did you
again.
have to have
No,
a
he's
reset?
got shoes
Does he?
on.
Did you have to have a reset at all after?
And yeah, at Bridgeport I had him reset. Yep. I got through here, past Chimney Rock, stayed at a place I won't mention because they were mean. And then, and I don't want to give them any free advertising. Went past, then at that place that I won't mention, my friend Vern Miller, who actually was my junior high school art teacher, who lives in Bridgeport now. I haven't seen him in 30-some years. And through Sherry Joe, and I'll get to see him, and hopefully we'll get to let them stay with us, I hope. But he announces for the Hoop Gibson Memorial Rodeo in Tacoma.
Wow.
So, and he's got this display of all of his belt buckles that he's been given for Announcer of the Year. He's just a super, super nice people.
Sure.
So that was some more really cool people. And then
took it all apart and then gave me
my favorite fire under the bridge at Paxton, where I was keeping the raccoons away. Then I really felt like a hobo. What'd you call me, Paul?
Troll.
A troll. Stupid me, I'm going, why are you calling her a troll? She's slept on her bridge. There's a lot of raccoon tracks all over under there, so I built a big old fire and kept that going for a good while. And Risky was terrific. I don't know what I'd have done without her. Because in the night when we were camped out, she'd keep the varmints away. You'd know when there was something coming close, because she'd, boom! She'd start barking. And when they got really close, she'd bounce on her front feet and bark. Brr, really fierce.
Yeah,
She stepped up to the plate, though. She did good. You wouldn't think she had it in her, but she did. She has it. And she only barked once that night, so the fire did the trick. And really,
Took it all apart.
made it to North Platte after that. Well, Cindy and Terry came.
After North Platte.
After North Platte. We made it to North Platte. Got to see lots of my friends because I used to live out there. Lived out there for about 7 years. Got to see my Velvet Spurs gals, the gals that I used to ride with on the drill team when I lived out there. And then when I left North Platte, Terry and Cindy came out again. This is Cindy's third trip with that living quarters trip. And this time she brought Terry with her.
Yeah.
And we met up actually just at Maxwell. They happened to have a parade going, and Bambi was talking to them. I don't know what happened to her. Bambi was talking to the town people, and they said, "Yeah, we got a parade. We'd love to have her ride in our parade." So we met I met up with Terry and at the town of Maxwell. We rode in the parade, and then we trailered back down to the lake or the campsite. And then they rode with me the next 2 days, and we hit the 1,000-mile mark together. Right here. After we went swimming with the horses and stuff at the one lake, and
Met the old guy who did the long ride.
met another old guy that did a long ride. Yeah. That was fun to talk to. He had all kinds of newspaper articles that he brought and showed us and stuff. Really fun people. And then they left. After that, they left me in the town of Gothenburg. I set up camp underneath the bleachers at the rodeo arena in Gothenburg. And I spent the one night after they left, spent one more night there and let some more rest, because he really was tired. And in fact, Terry and I were riding along together that one day before we hit the 1,000-mile mark, and I looked at S'more and I thought, oh my. He had this look on his face like, and I was really worried. And I was glad that, and that's why I decided that once we hit the 1,000, we'd trailer to Gothenburg and let him rest for a couple more days. And so I knew I really had to be careful from that point on, as far as his energy and how he was going to be. And we rode real short distance from Gothenburg to Kozad, and I stayed at Kozad one night. That was a fun place. It was kind of like a zoo, very much like a zoo. That's okay right now.
Is Bambi calling you?
With all kinds of mounted.
Is Bambi calling you back?
No, it's not Bambi. He had a lot of wild animal mounts on the. He was a big game hunter and stuff. It was pretty cool.
They had
More zebras.
Yeah,
zebras.
zebras, real life zebras.
Real zebras, live ones in the pastures. And Appaloosa horses.
Yeah.
Anyways, I stayed there one night, and then Bambi had me set up. She was talking to the people at Lexington that have a place called the Horse Motel. And if you drive down Interstate 80, when you come to the Lexington exit, just west of the exit, there's a sign right there on the interstate. You can see it says Horse Motel. And I've seen that place for years when I drive by there. It's been there for 20-some years. And they put me up, and I stayed there for 10 days, resting some more. He also had developed a bare patch on his withers, and I was watching that really close, making sure that didn't turn into anything, an abscess or anything. So I was going to rest a week, and then it turned out they needed somebody to watch the place while they went to a horse show. And so I got to stay 10 days. I got to watch the place for them after they left, and I was there, took care of things for them. And I met, those people, this is their little horse that they had that was real troubled. And I was able to work with the horse a little bit and help him out a little bit. And also bringing home a dog from there. She had to have her puppies and wean her puppies, and then I'm going back to get her. But she needed a home. So I get to rescue this little dog and maybe help that colt a little bit. And then I went to the Mexican horse races while I was in Lexington. That was kind of cool. But after 10 days, I headed south. And I stayed at a little church, the Hope Lutheran Church, here, and set my tent up and stuff there. And then I went down a little further the next day and stayed with this really nice gentleman that really touched me. He just was a super nice guy, and his wife was in a nursing home. He's just really lonesome, and we had such a nice talk, and I just really
Was that the guy with the
attached to
Western? Was that the Western Horseman magazine on the?
Yeah, he had a Western Horseman magazine on his truck. He just stopped on the road when he saw me riding and says, "I just live right down here. Why don't you come down there and stay?" I was actually kind of aimed for another place, but I wasn't sure it was going to work out, and that's kind of a long story. But anyway, I'd stayed with him, and I was really glad I did. And then I rode to Oxford the next day. But I did a lot of walking that last day, and I could feel my hip felt kind of different. I did a lot of walking anyway to save the horse, and this day as I was walking, I felt like I needed to kind of stretch this muscle a little more than usual that's in the front of my hip. And so I did, and I didn't have any pain. I felt great. Walked a lot that day. Got into town. This Reverend Dale got me fixed up to stay at his place. I was going to do something else, but it didn't work out, so I ended up tying him to a fence in this backyard and set my tent up by their garage. And next morning I got up and I couldn't walk. I mean, excruciating pain in this left hip. And I'm crawling around and I cannot walk. And I had pain pills. I took some pain pills. I didn't touch it. And I didn't know what else to do, but they got me set up to go see their doctor in Holdridge. Went over there and they did an x-ray and they said they think that my artificial hip socket in there is loose. He says, you can continue to ride if you want to. You probably won't do it any more harm than you already have. I mean, it's up to you what you do, they said. And I thought, well, here's another one of those decisions.
Get those cards out.
And they had given me a shot of a steroid that I was hoping would kick in, and so I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm only 20 miles from the Kansas border, and so I decided that night when I went to bed that if I felt better the next day, I would ride to Kansas. I could ride it in one day if I had to. And I probably, as long as I felt good enough, I would do that. I would ride to Kansas, then I'd quit. That was my plan. But in the morning, I was in no better shape than I was when I went to bed the night before, so I decided to call it. There I am!
Wow.
Good timing.
Well, that was about 4 hours later. Just about a day or so before this, I was on Facebook, and these people that I'd never met before.
But they had been following you
They'd
from
been
almost the
watching my
beginning.
journey, and I'd become friends with them on Facebook, but we'd never met.
Because they
And
lived nearby.
It just happened to be, she just happened to put a post on there one day and says, you know, we're retired, and if you ever got in any trouble, we could just drop everything and come and get you. That she just said that the day before. And so I called her, and she was there. They were there within 4 hours. I had a great time riding home with them. That's the way people work.
I remember about the first week or so of your journey, Dan gets on the group.
Yeah.
And him and I chatted back and forth a little bit about you and where we all lived, and because he lives in the neighborhood that you and I lived in.
Yeah, and we should have known each other.
And
crazy.
Him and I chatted a bit, and we're really looking forward to. They wanted to host you on
Yeah.
your last
Yeah.
night before she got home because they were in the right position to be the last leg of her trip.
Yep.
So they really got in. They really loved following along.
They were a couple of my biggest fans, just rooting for me the whole way. It was so much fun.
It was great. Great
Yeah.
watching that.
Waiting for Paul to make a post.
Yeah. Smart. Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Not often enough.
So that's that. That's that.
What you doing?
Colleen, is there anyone in this room, or has been in this room today, of some stranger that you met somewhere out in the state came to this deal? Is anybody like that here today?
You guys.
You guys.
No,
Well,
like
before today.
from on
From
Highway
out there?
20 or from Gothenburg or Lexington or.
You know, I had a
anywhere.
lot of phone calls from people
Yeah.
today
Okay.
and yesterday about it that
Yeah,
couldn't come.
and I read all the posts, they wanted to, they just
Yeah,
couldn't. There's
yeah.
always
And I had a friend that I met from out there come to see us about a week ago that couldn't be here this week, but they came. And then I had another guy call that was actually in town a couple days ago, but he had to go back. But I have had people actually come to town
The people
that I
from
met
Lexington that have-
clear out in the panhandle.
Good.
We're coming back from Maine, the people that have the pawn shop in Lexington.
Oh, and then, yeah, I stopped at a pawn shop in Lexington, because my husband owns a pawn shop in Blair, for those of you that don't know, and just talked to him for a little bit, and he actually came and met Paul and talked pawn shop stuff.
So when are you all done? When did you quit?
October 9th.
So 24th of May?
May 23rd and October 9th.
107 days.
108 days. How many days was it?
I think it was 108. But I'm not sure.
110.
Colleen, how's your hip now?
My hip is screwed up, and I had an appointment with a specialist last week, and he x-rayed it and says, yeah, it's screwed up. But we don't know how bad for sure. So next Wednesday, I go in for an MRI and a bone scan, and they'll know more. But they'll probably have to do surgery again at some point. And it scares me, but yeah.
Just had to get one of them bad ones.
Oh yeah, and you know what? There's another story that hasn't been told. From the peanut gallery over here, he reminded me. That's Bob Rain over there. He's from Logan, Iowa.
Hi, Bob.
His wife Sandy was a friend of mine. She raised foundation bred horses, the foundation quarter horses. And I met her probably 8-9 years ago, and she brought me a couple of horses to train for her. And I think about the third one was this little buckskin colt. I don't know, he must have been 2 or 3 at the time. And I started him under saddle. And this was the third one. And in this process, while I'm riding her horses for her, we're becoming friends. And we start running around together, and we go to some horse shows together. Go to visit some family of hers down in Missouri. And one day on the ride, I believe it was the trip to Missouri, we were riding home, and she says something to me about, boy, I ain't been feeling too good lately. I don't know what's wrong. I got a doctor's appointment at such and such in just a few days or something, and she went to that doctor's appointment, and they did some tests on her, and they discovered she had a real aggressive form of liver cancer. And she was gone within 9 weeks of that time. And that was the lady that raised S'more. S'more was that third colt that I started for her. And when she passed, she left him to me. And that's who I rode. He's not the ideal long distance horse, but he's my bud, and he's really special to me. And we did
Now talk about your other companion.
risky business.
We have an award.
Oh yes, we have something.
Where is Risky?
Risky
Right here.
business is right here. Come here, Risky. Come up here.
She must have sensed that she had something
Good girl. Come
coming.
here.
What's he showing us there? Oh,
Risky earned a reward on this trip. She did all the things that the best dogs would do. And she earned the championship river dog.
Now, Mom.
This is the dog you take to the river with you. She'll go with you and stay with you no matter what. And this is her reward, her trophy, which I'm sure she'll enjoy very much.
On my nose.
And you can hold the trophy.
Okay.
Now you are a champion river dog. She is now crowned.
You can get her to
There you
sit
go.
down so I can get that on the tape.
Sit. What's that say? Risky business. Official river dog. That's perfect.
So Colleen, how old is S'more now?
S'more's 9.
How old is Ruth?
She's probably 4. We got her from the shelter and don't know exactly, but she's a good one. I don't know what I know about her. She kept me warm.
At one point, Colleen thought about sending her home when Paul went to see her,
I was worried
And-
about her.
and I'm glad she didn't.
Yeah, me too. She made it. She never really had any trouble. I only put these things on her a couple times out of the whole trip. Any other questions?
I just want to say thanks for the nice presentation.
I know it.
Talk about that lady that you talked to about long distance riding.
Oh, Bernice Endy.
There you go.
One of the things that kind of told me this was meant to be and that this was really going to happen. When Paul and I first talked about it a little bit, and then I got on the Long Riders Guild website. I'd heard about this website before, and it came back to me when I got to thinking about this, and I went there and I started looking, and there's a lady named Bernice that has done a lot of long riding, and she's now about 25,000 miles under her belt. And I'm on the website looking around. I find this Bernice, and I go to her website. I look, and son of a gun, it's got this map that the route she's following, and it ends right in Scribner, Nebraska. She was in Scribner, Nebraska that very moment that I was on her website looking for more information on how to do this. And so I thought, well, that's too bizarre. I've got to find this lady. So I called the sheriff's department in that county, and I said, do you know anything about this lady? They didn't know nothing. I says, well, she said something in her blog about doing a talk at the library in Scribner. And I says, well, what's the number of the library? I call the library, and I says, there's some lady riding a horse across the state, and she's supposed to be doing a talk at your library. Do you happen to know where she's at? And they says, well, hang on a second. They hand her the telephone. She's in the library the very moment that I'm looking for her. Weird. So I went to see her and visited with her for a few hours while she was there at Scribner, and she taught me a lot, gave me a lot of good information. And I used a lot of it. I kept all that stuff in the back of my mind the whole time I was riding. And things that she said that didn't make sense to me, over time began to make lots of sense. And everybody has to do their deal a little different. Everybody's different circumstances, but it was just fate. I mean, there she was, right at that moment. It was meant to be.
Now,
And I've been in contact with her a few times. She wrote me and congratulated me. Oh yeah. Just before I got to Gothenburg, I was about 45 miles from making my 1,000 miles. There was a lady that have been watching me on Facebook. Her name's Megan, and she's real involved, or tries to be real involved with this Long Riders Guild. And she has been in touch with Coochie Lane, who's one of the big shots with the Long Riders Guild. And she'd been telling him about my journey, and he knew, through her, he knew a lot about it, and I got this call. I forget who called me. Was it Bambi, or I think Bambi called me and said, by the way, you have a little ways to go yet, but you've already been accepted into the Long Riders Guild as a member for making my 1,000 miles. And you have to, I don't know, you can read about the Long Riders Guild over here. It's a real elite organization, invitation only to be a member. You have to complete a 1,000-mile ride in one ride, and with especially taking good care of your horse. You can't abuse your horse in any way. You have to do it with a certain amount of integrity, and you can't use your horse for illegal blah blah blah. You know, just it's. And they accepted me before I even got there. They knew I was gonna, so they were getting ready to come out with their newsletter, and they thought, well, we'll stick her name in there. She's gonna make it. So I got accepted, and I got it. That's what reminded me, was that I got an email from Bernice saying congratulations. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I'm the 21st member worldwide.
Wow. How many?
221, I think, is what the number was.
Less long riders than there are.
Listen, so I don't know.
Isn't it male, female, compared to?
I don't know.
Less than
It's
what,
quite a
Carol?
few female.
Less than.
Hang on.
I don't know, really. I can't find the list, like I said.
Did you get a certificate or anything?
Pardon?
What about your hip coding since you've been back? Did you get that squared away? Or?
Well, I'm working on it. I have an MRI next Wednesday to look at it further.
Sue.
Soon.
Yeah, Sue.
So let's cut the cake. Any more questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay.
What percentage were you on the road, off the road?
Highway-wise or back road-wise? Is that what you mean?
Versus off a
How many days off did you take?
Any particular road?
I was always on a road.
Oh, okay.
Except for maybe the Cowboy Trail, maybe isn't a road, but it's a path that's made for a really nice trail that it ran out, and it only ran from, I got on it here at Emmett, rode it to Valentine, and then I tried riding it where it's not complete.
How long's it been
further,
in
but most of the rest of the time I was on a road of some sort.
How long has that been in existence? It's a Cowboy Trail.
Well, it's I don't know when they started
I'm just curious.
redoing it. It's
the old
several years.
CMW railroad track.
It's an old railroad.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's in the Rails and Trails cooperative where they're doing this all over the country.
Do you plan on giving this presentation to anybody else?
If we can get a hand ticket, I was going to be giving it at the Nebraska Horse Expo in March, but they're not having an expo this year, so that was the only plan that I had.
Would you consider giving it again if the right situation came
Yeah,
up?
exactly.
Because it's in.
You've always been my biggest fan.
I resent that.
One of them for sure. Yeah.
Oh, on the other side.
I was gonna tell you, but you were busy, but S'more is sleeping out there.
Never gets a chance.
For just